Hi there and welcome to episode 12 of my inexplicably popular Facebook video show, What Am I Listening To and Why? The premise is simple. I take the last 6 records that I've listened to on my turntable, I bring them up again and I give you an instant 2-minute review on each one. That's it. If you like it, subscribe and share. Let's get straight to it. Number 1 today is Malcolm McLaren's Duck Rock. Now, this is such a strange record. This came out in 1983. Malcolm McLaren was the manager of the Sex Pistols for better or for worse, but that's where he was. And then in the 80s he reached the point that he wanted to be a pop star himself. And he kind of managed it, sort of. This album is an amalgamation of things that we hadn't heard before and don't really go together. It was a bit of hip hop, a bit of African music, a bit of South America, a bit of world music, and scratching. I mean, this was the first place I heard scratching. It's not the first place I heard hip hop, but it would have been for quite a lot of people. And is it successful? Yeah, it kind of is. I thought it was a very exciting record when I first heard it. I thought the cover was incredibly exciting, and it kind of, by the most part, it lives up to it. The radio, in between the tracks, it has a radio station called the Famous Supreme Team from out of New Jersey. That was exciting. That was something new. I'd never heard that before, and kind of inspirational to me. And I love the scratching, and it's not all successful. There's bits of it that are a bit duff. I'm not keen on the South American music, and the track we could probably lose on here is Duck for the Oyster. If I never had to hear that again, I'd be more than happy. What was Malcolm McLaren's input into this? Very little. I think he had the idea, you know, he said put these things together and they were a great idea, but then Trevor Horn and Thomas Dolby had to come in and actually do it. In Trevor Horn's book he says that McLaren was completely useless, didn't even have a sense of timing, couldn't count 4 beats in a bar, so to make something work with him I think took a hell of a lot of stress on Trevor Horn's part. But yes, I think this is a great record. I think it still stands up, even though everything on it is very much old school. But I would definitely give this a whirl. The African stuff's great, the hip hop stuff's great, the South American stuff is not so great. I would give it a positive 6, Malcolm McLaren. Positive 6. Record number 2 is an album called Real Life from Magazine. This is their first album. Magazine were Howard Devoto's band that he went to after leaving Buzzcocks in 1978. A whole different prospect. He only did 1 record with the Buzzcocks, that was a Spiral Scratch EP, and I don't know what happened, something went wrong, and he ended up in this. This features also John McGeoch, legendary post-punk guitarist, and Magazine, incidentally, were one of the first, if not the first band I ever saw live, supported by Simple Minds. Can't remember anything about the gig apart from Howard Devoto lying on the stage, sort of sideways, singing. I mean, I would be like 14, possibly 13, so this was way beyond me. This is a great piece of post-punk work. It's got all the post-punk things that you kind of expect. It's kind of dark, and but not too dark, as I always say. It's nicely sophisticated. There's a lot going on in here, and it's got some brilliant early analog synthesizer stuff, which just makes it slightly prog. And I really like that. I love the sound of those early synthesizers. The single was shot by both sides, which is kind of, I can see why it's a single because it is up and sort of maybe one of the more memorable tracks, but it's not really true to the album. The single is like old school, punky, rocky, catchy chorus, whereas the rest of it is a lot more, it's a lot wider than that. There were 3 or 4 albums, I remember Secondhand Daylight and Correct Use of Soap. As far as this goes, I probably like this the least, even though it's the first album, you usually like that the best, but Magazine are definitely worth a go. You can't do hours of it because there's a tendency for it to make you feel a bit put Magazine on. That's really not fair. Magazine Real Life. I'm going to give it, again, I'm going to give it a solid 6. Record 3, and a lot of people are probably going to be surprised and balk at this, but it's Dexys Midnight Runners 2 Rye. And you may be expecting me to give this like a hellish review, but that's not really where I'm going to go with it. I think this is a really wonderful record with just, it's like a dungarees concept album, and it really is. And almost everything is great on here, but the problem is it's a victim of its own success, because we're all sick to fucking death of seeing Disco Betties dancing around their handbags to Come On Eileen, or what was the other one? I can't remember what the one was. But the 2 singles on here, fuck it, we've really had it with them. And I never really heard this album till about 2 years ago. And when I did, really blew my socks off. So far ahead of its time. The Waterboys would be doing this, what, 8 years later or something. Kevin Rowland is an amazing songwriter, and he's an amazing guy with ideas. Unfortunately, he's not an amazing guy at being nice to people, and that was certainly true. It may not be true now, but I think his career suffered for being a bit of a, you know, a bit over the top with the the self-love, perhaps. But I can't get around how good this is. I listened to this solidly for about 3 months when I first discovered it, as I say, which was like 2 years ago, because I love all the other songs on it. And then you can kind of take Come On Eileen within its context, but don't brush this under the carpet and think that it's a piece of nonsense, because it really isn't. They brought out a remix, and Kevin Rowland called it Dexys Midnight Runners 2 Rye, as it should sound. I wanted that, so I went and bought it, and it has a huge hiss over the top of it on the vinyl and the CD. So you put it on and it goes sss over the top, and apparently that's a fault in the pressing, and they're all like that. So apparently 2 Rye, as it should sound, should have a massive hiss over the top. Sss. I sent an email to Kevin about it. He did not reply. This is a 7.5. Record number 4 is by someone I'd never heard of until about a week ago. This is the Dylans with their first album, The Dylans. Now, I picked this record up in a literal junk shop about 4 days ago, and can I just say, that's where it should have remained. This comes from the very early 90s, and there's not an original thing on this record. This record is an amalgamation of everything the Stone Roses do, mixed up with everything the Charlatans do, in a dreadful attempt to jump on the baggy bandwagon. If you were wanting to release something baggy in America and make it worse, this is what you would do. I cannot imagine how this thing came about. There is not an original thought or note on this whole thing. Right, listen to this. Who does this sound like? I think you're taking the fucking piss there. I can't imagine who signed them. I'm desperately scraping for something good to say about it. The only good thing I could say about it is it's very well recorded, but very well recorded garbage remains garbage nonetheless. As for making this album, I don't know how anyone couldn't have turned around and said, hey, do you know what? Maybe we're doing something wrong here. Or maybe I've got it wrong. Did this come before the Stone Roses? And then no, it didn't. This was made in the early 90s, the Stone Roses. 89 Stone Roses album. Yes, it's absolutely shocking, and at the same time, it's absolutely hilarious. Now, I usually give every album 3 listens all the way through before I do this review. I gave this 1 listen at night, and I gave the whole thing a listen in the gym while I was marching on the treadmill. And I kind of laughed all the way through it, because every time a Stone Roses trope cliche or a Charlatans trope cliche came up, I almost burst out laughing. This is the worst piece of waste of fucking time in anybody's life, and possibly the worst record I've ever reviewed here. The only reason that the Brian Jonestown Massacre gets a better review than this is that at least they tried to do their own thing, kinda. This is cynical. A cynical attempt to jump on the fucking baggy bandwagon. They are the sham 69 of Manchester, even though they're from Sheffield. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible waste of time. I would like to take it off the thing and smash it, but I've already done that. Snap it over my knee. So there you go. Yeah, the Dylans, even their fucking name, even the name of the band is a rip-off. As Homer Simpson once said, it's not the last we'll see of them. 2. Record number 5 is by a band that I'd never heard of called Silverhead. And this is their second album called 16 and Savaged. Before I go any further with this, can I just say, I am well aware that almost everything about this record is something that you just could not do today. This is from 1973. Look at that cover. 16 and Savaged. That's awful. It's really awful. And almost everything about, aesthetically, everything about this record is kind of awful. Even the names of the songs, More Than Your Mouth Can Hold. You're not making this record today. Let's take it in its context of time in 1973. It's a kind of, it's a British New York Dolls. It's kind of glam, but it's too dirty. And I don't mean like the songs are dirty, it's just the whole thing's too sleazy to make it onto Top of the Pops. It had the main guy was a guy called Michael DeBarres, who was a TV star apparently. He was in Gilligan's Island, whatever that is, I don't know. He went on to sing in the Power Station, but this was his original project. He's also the Marquis de something, so there's a sort of whiff of aristocracy, horrible aristocracy about this record to go along with everything else that is horrible. But I'm going to say, I actually like this album. I find the songs quite memorable and catchy, and I like the sleazy. I don't like this. No, but the sleazy feel of the whole thing does have a genuine kind of New York Dolls, early, I hate to say the word proto-punk, I always use it, but it kind of is like that. It does have that feel. And this record stands a few plays, because usually, as I say, it's 3 plays, but I've played this one at least 7 or 8 times, and I genuinely do like it. But I would totally understand if people didn't. But I say, I haven't heard the first album, if you like your rock, and you like your glam, and you like a bit of all of that, give this a go. Silverhead, 16 and Savaged. I'm going to give it a 7. Everyone's getting a 7. Final record today, this is record number 6. This is an album called Kill the Wolf by Matt Berry. Now Matt Berry is a television star, a comedy star you probably know, who I'm talking about, from the IT Crowd to, what does he do now? That vampire show, which is wonderful. I love Matt Berry, I'm a huge fan. I bought this record sight unseen. I pulled it up in a second-hand record shop and I thought, wow, Matt Berry makes music. Apparently he's made about 5 albums. I'm not sure, I think this one's the 4th or the 5th, I don't know. Kill the Wolf. It's very surprising because what it is, it's a kind of a parody of prog rock and that sort of folky prog rock. But it's not so much a parody as a tribute, because it's beautifully done, and it's not done in a way that makes you think, oh, he's taking the piss. It isn't taking the piss. It's really doing it, and it's nodding to it and saying, well, wasn't this kind of thing amazing? Sort of Steel-Eye Span. I don't know if that's true. I just pulled that name out of nowhere. But it's very, very likeable, and once you put it on, you'll definitely play it all the way through, and you'll definitely play it a few times. It's the sort of thing, if you like The Wicker Man, there's a touch of sort of Wicker Man, a touch of the Wicker Man soundtrack to it, but I mean that in the best possible way. It's very concept-y, and you can see from the cover, it's all cheesecloth shirts and no collar and old analog synths again that I love. I I'd forgotten I had it till I was searching through to find something to thought. I thought, oh, this is an odd one, and it really is. And it's one of these albums that has the same musical theme runs through from the start to the finish, and rather than that make it boring, it doesn't. It makes it more interesting and more listenable. Matt Berry is, I was going to say he's as good at music as he is at comedy. I'm not sure I'd go that far, but if his other albums are anything as good as this, then he's definitely worth looking into. This is a solid, again, it's a solid 7. This has been the show of the 7s, unfortunately, apart from the Dylans and magazine. I don't mean it. Thank you very much for watching. As usual, if we reach 1,000 views, you'll get your tasty bonus content. Will come within a few days. So don't forget, like, subscribe, share. I'm not going to go on. I've had a row for saying that I'm begging for shares, so I won't beg for shares. Please share. Thank you. Thank you very much for watching. What? Thank you. Oh God. Thank you very much for watching. Oh my God, I'm not staying. Thank you very much for watching. I can't breathe. Oh God. Thank you very much for watching.